he literally went through 2 homes like falling apart during the contract. He couldn't catch a break. And when we finally got to the closing table, he disclosed to me that he'd been living in his car the year prior. And he sent me a message at Thanksgiving, and I might get emotional, but he was like, literally, he goes, Amber, I'm hosting people in my home for Thanksgiving. Like, I can't tell you what it means to me. And I was just like, this is 100% why I do it.
Welcome to the Lowdown Mortgage Podcast, the show where we dive deep into the topics that directly impact the evolving originator. I'm your host, Connor Bartley. Bam! And joining me today is someone I'm really excited for you guys to meet and for me to talk to. She's relatively newer to the industry, about 5.5 years. And last year, funded just under 100 units, really doing some amazing things, educating clients in her market, doing a great job bringing value to her referral partners, and has even been a guest on Dave Savage's podcast. So I want to give a warm welcome. Amber Moser, welcome to the Lowdown.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's really a pleasure to have you here today and just to have this conversation. This show is for the evolving originator, people who have figured out the basics of this job. They know how to get a loan. They know how to structure a file. They know how to do enough to do 3, 4, maybe 5 units a month on a good month. But that consistency or maybe that growth is something that's really a barrier in their way. And so to talk with someone like you, who's overcome some of those obstacles and has found kind of their authentic voice, it's invaluable. So I want to say thanks again. And just as we dive in and get started, like, for context, if you don't mind. Now, I know you were in the healthcare field before you got into mortgage. So I'm really curious, like, how did that transition happen? And then how have you taken what you learned from healthcare and applied it into mortgage? You have it all.
For sure. It actually was really relevant. So I was a physical therapy assistant for 8 years before jumping into this. And it was really just opportunistic, I'd say, during COVID. I actually was laid off right before COVID hit. It was like 2 months prior, and it had to do with our caseload, just couldn't sustain my salary. And so it gave me a chance to go, okay, this really isn't serving me and getting me the life that I want anymore. So what's next? And I got really curious and I started doing I took what I knew about myself personality wise, what I loved. I love puzzles. Like I'm a huge fan of puzzles. Pretty much every fall in my house, there's a puzzle sitting out so that I can just check out and work on it. I love numbers. I'm a huge fan of spreadsheets. Like I used to say that if I needed to convince somebody of anything, there would be a spreadsheet involved. And so I took those things and I put it together. But then I also I have family that's in the industry. At the time, my mother-in-law was a real estate broker. My mother is a title insurance. She owns a title company. And I picked their brain. I was like, okay, I'm thinking lending. Like, what do you think? And they both were like, 1,000,000% that fits you. And I'd say the biggest takeaway from therapy that I've brought over was education. My whole job as a physical therapy assistant is educating the client and getting buy-in from them so that they'll invest and do what they need to do. Well, sounds a whole lot like lending. Like we are constantly educating and advising clients so that they see the benefit, so they buy in and start to build wealth. They own homes, they pursue the things that they want. So that would be the biggest thing that I've taken away from it. And I think that it just affirmed, I wish I would have jumped in 10 years ago doing it.
Yeah. So now that you've been doing this a few years, I mean, was it an instant yes, I'm doing the right thing, or was there a moment where you were said, okay, this is the career I want. This isn't just a job for me. I'm all in.
I think it was an instant yes. My first 6 months, I was like, love this. And you kind of get that. There's a little bit of a high, right? Like whenever you win a deal or you start to see the numbers grow or somebody gives you feedback, right? Like, ooh, you do something a little differently. I really like this. I started getting a lot of that pretty early. And so it was the flywheel, right? It's just feeding it and growing. And I was like, okay, 100%, I'm all in on this.
Yeah. And so having family in the industry, that's really interesting. I'm actually surprised they didn't try to talk you out of it.
Yes.
But I guess they know you really well. I mean, as an onlooker, kind of watching family before you got into the business, what was it like? What were your impressions of real estate and not mortgage? Because I guess you were seeing title and real estate, but what were your impressions of the industry?
That's tough. I don't know that I even dove into their work life a whole lot. Like I saw my mom's, work life balance as a business owner, but as far as like knowing exactly what she did in title, I couldn't tell you probably with any depth. But I think one of the things that I did see with them that I love, one, they're both women and they both were always available. And so part of my switch was I have kids, they're twin boys, they're 13. We're very busy. We play baseball. I say we, they play baseball.
You pretty much are part of the team, though,
I
right?
am. My ex is driving all the things, I'm very invested, but they play baseball. I've said forever I want to be 100% in as a mom, and I only get to do this once. And so I don't want to look back and my kids be like, well, mom was always working, or she couldn't go to this because, and that's where I was when I was doing therapy. So for me, it wasn't even just like money potential. There was that because in therapy, I was capped. I would never make more than $65,000 a year. That was period. And I wanted to be able to tell myself when it was enough. And then I also wanted the time freedom to be able to say, I can take my kids to school every day. I can pick them up every day. So when I saw like my mom's life like that, my mother-in-law, that was kind of how hers was too. It was good to be able to like affirm, well, this is a really great career, not just for anybody, but especially for like a mom that wants to do that as well.
Yeah, and I think you learned like did the layoff and all of that really impact you too? Because they say sales is always hiring, and
Yeah.
I personally recruited healthcare a long time ago. When I first got out of college, my first job was to help nurses get jobs in hospitals. And when the financial crisis hit and we were in the Great Recession, what I learned was if you had a salary, you were expendable when times got tough. And companies really wanted to find that revenue generating employee. And so doctors were all the rage, right? Every hospital was like, well, give us a doctor. We don't need a nurse. We need a doctor. We need somebody who's going to make the hospital some money.
Right.
And so, did that layoff kind of was that an eye opening moment for you of going like, okay, yeah, I need to find something where I can be insulated and just have my carve my own path.
I think it was more confirmation of things I've been feeling for a few years anyway. I did have a really great boss in the job right before the one that laid me off. So I was at a different therapy place for like 4 years. He was fantastic. There was multiple times I'd be like, "Hey, I really want to change my schedule so that I can do this day after school." Like he was very flexible with me, but it still never quite like scratched the itch that I had. Like I was not, still wasn't enough. Like I wasn't there. I couldn't, I wanted more. Like I kept constantly pursuing more. And so when I finally decided to leap into this, it really just, it was just confirmation. Um, the crazy part is you said sales is always hiring. Nobody pitched this to me as an idea. Like it was, I'm not a person that's really ever met like a no, like that I won't take, like, or that I will take. I constantly find a way to do things. And so this literally looked like I looked up the course. I took the 20-hour class. I went to the guy at PRMG and I was like, hey, I need somebody to mentor me. Hey, I'm about to go get licensed. Like, I'm going to take my test. Nobody, I had no sponsorships, nothing. Like there was nobody pushing me to do it. It was all me. And I wanted somebody that was gonna like, I knew I was like gonna take off. And so I needed somebody who was ready to take off as soon as I got licensed. So it's just kind of, I don't know, it felt a little maybe backwards, but it worked
Yeah.
really well.
Well, but I love that tenacity and the go for it attitude. You shared with me right before we started. You got a sign that says "Don't tell me what to do," and
Yep.
and I love that attitude too. It's so great. And so you're in the business now. You're helping people get into homes. You've found a passion for educating people and helping them make empowered decisions. Like, is there a particular story or a loan that still like resonates with you today, or one that you just know you'll never forget?
Couple.
Okay.
And I think I'd say they kind of fall into genres, but like I do have one that I helped. I think he was the very first year of my career and he was a first time buyer and he literally went through two homes like falling apart during the contract. Like it was like he couldn't catch a break. And when we finally got to the closing table, he disclosed to me that he'd been living in his car the year prior. And I was like, and he sent me a message at Thanksgiving, and I might get emotional, but he was like, literally, he goes, Amber, I'm hosting people in my home for Thanksgiving. Like, I can't tell you what it means to me. And I was just like, this is 100% why I do it. It's my favorite. And then I'll have stories that probably sound a little bit more similar to mine, and they seem kind of vanilla, is my best way of saying it. But it's the person who never was taught about money and they weren't taught about investing. I bought two homes before I ever got into mortgage. Like, I'd already bought two before I got into this industry. And the amount of stuff that I didn't know and how to make the decisions that were needed along the way was really alarming to me. And I tell a lot of clients this. And so the reason I take the educational approach, and the reason I think people who like want to work with me or are attracted to work with me, it's because I'm going to give them the tools to empower them to make the decisions. If you come to me talking about rate shopping and you don't understand what a point is, we can't have a conversation truly about it. And so, anybody who's like super appreciative of the education part is definitely one that stands out. And then more recently, last year, I think it was last year, I got certified as a certified divorce lending professional. I was the only one in the state of Arkansas. I think there's one more now. But I've had a few clients, specifically women, who are navigating divorce, and they were not the money managers in their home, and so they weren't very empowered to be able to take on new home ownership or even know what that looks like. And so one in particular had come to me, and she had in her mind, "Hey, I know how much I'm getting from the sale. It gives me just enough to do 20% down. I need to put that down, and I need to buy a new home." And so we sat for a second, and I was like, "Okay, so tell me a little bit more about your debt situation." And she goes, "Well, I've got this car and I've got a couple credit cards and I was like, oh. I said, "Can I pitch a different idea to you?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "How about instead we do 10% down? And how about we pay off your car and we pay off your student loans or your credit cards or whatever it was." And I was like, "That actually saves you $800 a month." And I was like, and she goes, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "No." I said, "Because you're going to add a little bit of mortgage insurance and your payment's going to go up a little bit because you're not doing 20% down, but you gained $800 a month in your budget." And she was like, oh, she goes, "Nobody ever told me that." And I was like, so those are the stories that like, this is why I love what I do, because I just want people to know that there's not a one size fits all. And there's so many ways to achieve like what they're going for.
Yeah, and you've really embraced education using Mortgage Coach, the tools and the technology that help you kind of get that message across to those agents or to those borrowers. And then you're also pretty active on social media too. So I guess what is that just because you see you need to meet people where they are, or what are some of the reasons that you've really embraced those things?
I wish I could go back and remember why I did my first TikTok. I have not a clue, other than I was watching it and I think I was like, well, people are doing this. I can probably do this too. But also, one of the things that somebody told me whenever I got into this industry is like, you don't have to know all the answers, you just have to know where to find the answers. And so that kind of pushed me into like, let me educate myself. And then I've also been encouraged to, I think, I don't know what the phrase is, and I'll butcher it if I try, but the best way that you solidify that you know something is to teach somebody else something, right? And so when I'm in the industry and I'm learning all of this stuff, and if I can take this concept that's kind of difficult and boil it down to a 2-minute video, then I can communicate it really well to a client. And so I think even me making TikTok videos was a challenge to myself to go, I want to take what I'm learning and I want to condense it so that I can communicate effectively with it and share that with people. And it just so happened to take off though, and I get a lot of agents in my market that like, "I love your videos." Like, I'll have ones that call me like, we saw your videos, we love that, we'd love to work with you. Would you be open to coffee?" And so I don't even have to like constantly reach out to them anymore because my videos are doing that for me.
Yeah. So when you make those videos, do you have like a target, like an avatar? That's the word that everyone uses these days. Do you have like a someone in
Mhm.
mind that you're making them for, or are you just sort of doing what comes natural to you?
It's more like I'm sure actually if a lot of my clients watch it, they'd be like, "She's talking about my scenario that came across her desk." Because there'll be something like this week. I want to talk to people about derogatory credit. It's frustrating that they don't understand how much derogatory credit can impact them. And so the importance of, if you're in a mortgage, make sure that you're making your mortgage payments on time. Because if you need to refi in the future and you've got two late payments, we're in a tough spot. And so it's more, I'll take things that I've run across, scenarios that I wish I could blast as a PSA. It's kind of because, again, I come from nobody taught me about this. Nobody teaches you in school what a debt to income ratio is or how to build your credit score. So it's almost as if I could blast a PSA to the world, what would I want them to know? And so that's kind of what I think about when I make those videos.
Yeah. So you're basically just taking what the world gives you, right? And observing and saying, people need to know more about this. I'm going to take the time to educate them. And I love what you said about just the challenge of trying to condense that teaching into something short. They do say, and I'll butcher it too, but if you can teach something in a very short period of time, you truly demonstrate that you understand it. The more you take to explain, the more you don't really understand. And so I think that's a really great challenge for anybody to kind of give themselves, is like, take that question that every borrower has and see how fast you can explain it in the clearest possible way, because clarity removes confusion, and confusion
Mm.
makes people empowered, and it builds a lot of trust. So when you talked a little bit about referral partners and realtors reaching out to you, but what do you feel is the value that you're bringing to those relationships, and kind of what sets you apart from anyone else in the market that they could work with?
Yeah. I would say, well, the advantage of being where I'm at in my career now is that I get to be a little choosier with who I work with. And so the agents that I work with now and the ones that I've worked with long term over the last few years have been the ones that really value that education component for not just their clients, but for themselves. And they know that they can call me with questions. They know that I am well equipped to answer the client's questions, but it's also a lot of times I'm doing even more educating just like for the brokerage, or I get a lot of requests from agents to come in and teach a class on a specific topic, or I find that there's a lot of agents lacking in areas, and so I'll generate a class and then teach on that specific thing. And I think that it's just the ones that I work with now, we've kind of developed this, like, it's the you like, you trust people, right? Like, that's the people that you work with. And so we've just established this really great trust over the years. And I think a lot of it really does. I hate saying education so much, but it really stems from me educating them. And it goes both ways too. I love that I can call agents and be like, hey, your contract doesn't make sense here. Can you help me understand what I don't know about it, because I'm not a realtor? And so then when I know something better, I'm also doing better. Same thing with my like appraisers and stuff. Like, I just think that we're constantly needing to learn from one another. And I find that not a lot of people will take the time to slow down and teach others like what they need to know to work together well.
Yeah, I love what you said about now you can sort of be a little more selective about who you work with. What was that? Like, where would you say was the tipping point for you on that? Because controlling the door, I think, is one of the 10 things that separates top producers from everyone else. And that's such an essential piece of it. So, who you work with, who you surround yourself with, all of that. What was, like, when did you feel comfortable with that decision?
So I'm a goal setter, right? Like, I have a production volume that I want to hit every year. But this last 2 years, you kind of said something earlier, which I'm going to bring into this too. You said something about producing consistently and getting to that point where it was like, the 3 to 5, you're like, okay, but how do I go to 9 to 10? And what I realized is in the 3 to 5 range, 3 to 6 range, there's a desperation mode of sorts that you're like, I'm going to take everything. I'm going to try to sit here and I'm going to say yes to everything. I'm going to try to take the square peg and fit it in the round hole. And it doesn't matter. Like, oh, I can shave this off. Like, you're working so hard to get everything. And I think there was a point, I don't know if somebody said something, but I just got to a point where I was like, I'm wasting so much time trying to fit this here that I could go out and get three that fit here. And I didn't have to do all the work for that. And so it's not that I wanted to cut out like working with low credit borrowers or working with people who required a lot of hand holding. I just wanted to stop working with people who had no intention of being like that loyal referral partner or that loyal customer because they didn't see the value in what I was doing. And when you are somebody who tries to educate so much, it takes a lot of time. A lot of time. Mortgage coach presentations don't make themselves. Me making a bomb bomb video to go with it every time, I can't farm that out to my assistant. It has to be me, and they're going to trust me. It has to come from me. So it's a lot of time, which means I need other people to do stuff. So the long answer is, I finally just got to a point where I was like, am I willing to say no to something and bet that there's three better things on the other side if I cut out the thing that I 100% know is a time waster? And so I just started looking at people differently, saying, are they willing to work with me in the way that I've built? And if they're not, I'm just going to take a leap of faith and trust that like there's something better on the other side and that there are three other people that would like to do that.
Yeah. I feel like that is a moment. It's like the Matrix, where everything slows down and but you see things with such clarity. And something that a phrase, I don't know if I've ever heard it or if it's just something that comes to my mind, but I tell my kids this all the time. If all you do is take what you can get, you will never have time to get what you want.
True
And
state.
you've got to be intentional about the choices you make and the things you want to pursue and what's going to get in the way. Like, you have to edit, or you're just going to just take what the world gives you, and you may not love what the world gives you, and you might try to be happy with it, but you'll never find that real fulfillment. And I guess, just kind of speaking of fulfillment, like, why do you love what you do? Like,
Hmm.
what is it about what you're doing today that just gets you up in the morning every day and gets you excited about it?
I mean, let's be real. There's parts of it that are frustrating, right? And we
Of
have to
course,
do
yeah.
that. But I was talking, I think earlier about my friend Brittany. She's like my mortgage bestie, and we've just really like hit it off over the last few years. We constantly come back to this place of like extreme gratitude that this gives me, even on the days where I am frustrated, or I've literally been in this floor back here crying, praying over loan files, trying to get them through. I'm not kidding. Like, just things happening, and it's like, okay, like I want this so bad for these people. Whenever you hit those walls, I constantly come back to, Amber, there is nothing else in the world that you could do that affords you the lifestyle that you have and gives you, and I'm not talking just money, gives you the time with your kids, gives you the freedom, gives you just, I mean, I'm so grateful, even just for opportunities like, this is really fun, and things that I never thought that I would do with my life. Like, I come back to a place of just, I'm extremely grateful that I get to do something that doesn't make me hate waking up every morning and doesn't take away from time with my kids in the ways that I don't want it to. And so I love, helping clients, and for sure it's rewarding, but at the end of the day, I don't think anybody works for free just because they think that it's fun. So like for me, I found something that was giving me all the parts of life that I really wanted.
Yeah. So let's talk about what's next for you. If I were to talk with you a year from now, what would you say you're most proud of that you accomplished in the last year?
Oh boy. Well, I do have some production goals, and I 100% will be chasing those. I hired two people and added to my team this year for the first time, so that's big.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thanks. So excited to see that growth. But there's a secret project that I've been working on too in the tech space, and so I would say in a year, I would hope that there is something there that is actually a tangible thing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to hear that. I know a lot of other, even previous lowdown guests that are kind of tinkering with technology and building things, and it's really cool what you can create. And I love, like, as hard as these last couple of years have been for originators, the thing that I love about it is the forced innovation that it has created, and some of the really sharp people who have said, you know what, I'm just going to build it myself. Like,
Yes.
they're fed up with not getting, all the tools they need or what have you. And they said, you know what, there's this great opportunity right now for me to build it myself. I'm going to do it. And I mean, I've got a guy that I work with here that built an app for his clients, building his own CRM,
Hmm.
crazy stuff, right? And so, if you can dream it, you can bring it to life these days. And so I'm really excited to find out what that is, and I'll definitely be checking back on it. But we'll leave it at that for now. But before we end, Amber, is there anything else you want to add that someone who's listening might get some value out of?
Man, we kind of talked about this before that we started recording. And so I think I would add that for any originators out there, like, you don't have to apply what everybody else is doing and assume that you have to do the same thing. I talked about the buffet mentality a little bit. I have lived and died by that. I am surrounded by people who are smarter than me and do more production than me, but not everything that they do works for me. And so I'm always grateful whenever I have opportunities to learn from others and pick up pieces of like what's made them successful and adopt the things that work for me, and the things, the things that don't, just leave that for them. And so I think that that's just something that I would encourage, especially new originators and like the ones on my team. That's what we're talking about a lot, is I want them to know it's not a one size fits all, and there really is like this amazing capacity to build what you want. So just don't feel like you have to fit the mold of everybody else.
Yeah. Well, great parting words. Amber, thank you for joining the Lowdown. It was great having you on the show, and I just wish you nothing but the best for the future.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to hear.